Hello
I'm not sure.
everyone, welcome
No,
to
I
my
mean Milton
channel.
Keynes is very affordable. That's one of the reasons we're there, so we can live.
I'm Addison, 29, and I just realized my own family thinks I'm an ATM with legs. My sister just told me the family gathering I paid for happened without me. That's when I knew I was done being their personal bank account. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt taken for granted by the people who should love you most. You'll definitely want to stick around for what happened next. Let me take you back to where this all started. Growing up in the Hartwell family meant understanding your place early. My sister Grace was the golden child. Beautiful, charming, never expected to lift a finger. My nephew Tyler was the family's future, coddled and protected from anything resembling responsibility. My mother spent most of her time managing everyone else's feelings, making sure Grace never felt stressed or Tyler never felt pressured. And me? I was the responsible one, the one who figured things out, the one who worked summers at 14 while Grace went to cheerleading camp, the one who got a job at 16 while my mother drove Grace to auditions for school plays. Nobody ever said it directly, but the message was clear. Addison handles things. College was no different. While Grace studied communications and partied her way through state school, I worked nights at a diner and weekends at a retail store, maintaining a 3.8 GPA in business. I graduated with 2 job offers and a 5-year plan. Grace graduated with a boyfriend and a vague idea about maybe working in marketing someday. At 25, I started Hartwell Consulting. Business process optimization sounds boring, but it pays extremely well when you're good at making companies run more efficiently. By 27, I had 12 employees and clients in 3 states. By 28, we'd expanded to include digital transformation services. Grace, meanwhile, had been through 3 jobs and 2 breakups, each one requiring family intervention and financial support. Tyler needed private tutoring because regular school wasn't challenging enough for his unique gifts. My mother needed a better health insurance plan because her part-time receptionist job didn't offer good benefits. Guess who solved all these problems? The business insurance plan that covered my mother cost me $800 a month. Tyler's tutoring ran $400 weekly. Grace's rent during her finding herself phase, $1,200 a month for 8 months. When Grace's car broke down, I co-signed the loan for her replacement. When Tyler needed summer camp because he was too advanced for regular programs, that was $3,000 for 6 weeks. I never asked for gratitude, never demanded recognition. I just handled it, because that's what Addison did. My mother would say things like, Grace is going through a difficult time, or Tyler needs extra support during his formative years. Never, thank you for keeping this family afloat, or we appreciate your generosity. It was just expected, like breathing. The pattern was so established that when Grace got engaged to Derek last spring, nobody even questioned who would pay for the engagement party. When Tyler decided he wanted to learn guitar, nobody wondered where the money for a quality instrument and lessons would come from. When my mother mentioned her prescription costs were getting overwhelming, the solution was obvious. Addison would handle it. But here's the thing about being the family's financial solution. You start to think that's your value. You believe that your contributions matter, that you're building something together. You imagine that all this support is creating bonds, strengthening relationships. You tell yourself that family means taking care of each other. What you don't realize until it's too late is that some families have givers and takers. And once you're categorized as a giver, that's all you'll ever be. The warning signs were always there. Holiday gatherings where Grace would arrive empty-handed while I brought gifts for everyone. Family photos where I was positioned slightly outside the main group. Conversations that would pause when I entered a room, then resume with forced brightness. But I convinced myself I was paranoid. These people loved me. We were family. Last week, sitting in my downtown office looking over quarterly reports, I had no idea that Christmas dinner would finally show me the truth. My assistant brought me coffee and mentioned she was excited about her family's holiday plans. What about you, boss? Big family celebration? I smiled, thinking about the envelope in my desk drawer. Inside were confirmation numbers for the lake house rental I'd secured for our extended family gathering. 2 weeks at a beautiful property with enough bedrooms for everyone, a huge kitchen for group cooking, a dock for fishing. I'd paid the $5,000 deposit without hesitation. Yes, I told her. It's going to be wonderful. I believed that completely. Little did I know that while I was planning our family Christmas, my family was planning a Christmas without me. The lake house reservation confirmation sat in my drawer like a promise of perfect family memories. I'd spent hours researching properties, reading reviews, comparing amenities. The place I finally chose had everything: a massive stone fireplace, a gourmet kitchen, views of the lake from every bedroom window. Grace had mentioned wanting somewhere special and memorable for Tyler's first Christmas as a teenager. My mother had said it would be wonderful to get everyone together somewhere peaceful. Even my father, who rarely expressed opinions about family gatherings, had nodded approvingly when I mentioned the idea. So naturally, I made it happen. What they'd actually said was more like hints dropped in my presence. Wouldn't it be nice if we could all get away together? And Tyler would love somewhere with outdoor activities. The kind of wistful comments that, in my family, always translated to, Addison should arrange this. I'd called the property manager immediately, secured the dates, paid the deposit, and started planning meals and activities. In my mind, we were all going to spend 2 weeks creating memories, playing board games by the fire, cooking together, maybe finally having those deep conversations that somehow never happened during regular visits. The week before Christmas, my phone rang constantly with family logistics. Grace needed someone to pick up last-minute gifts because Derek was working late. Tyler needed a ride to his friend's house because my mother's car was making that noise again. My father needed help moving some furniture because his back was acting up. I handled everything, of course. Picked up Grace's gifts, drove Tyler across town, helped my father rearrange his living room. Each task came with grateful hugs and promises that they'd make it up to me during our lake house vacation. The night before Christmas Eve, I was in my kitchen preparing dishes to bring to dinner. Homemade rolls from my grandmother's recipe, the green bean casserole Grace always requested, and my famous chocolate trifle that Tyler loved. I'd also wrapped presents for everyone, carefully chosen gifts that reflected actual attention to their interests. For Grace, I'd found a vintage camera from the 1970s because she'd mentioned wanting to try film photography. For Tyler, a collector's edition of his favorite graphic novel series. For my mother, a silk scarf from a local artisan because she'd admired similar ones at a boutique months ago. For my father, tickets to see his favorite blues musician at a small venue next month. Thoughtful gifts. Personal gifts. Expensive gifts. I was humming while I worked, genuinely excited about Christmas dinner, and especially about revealing the lake house surprise. I'd even prepared a little speech about how grateful I was for our family and how much I looked forward to our time together. My phone buzzed with a text from Grace. "Can't wait for dinner tomorrow. So excited to tell you about our plans." I smiled, assuming she meant plans for the lake house trip. Maybe she'd thought of some activities we could do together, or restaurants we could visit in the area. I texted back, "Me too. I have a surprise that I think everyone will love." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Finally, "Oh, that's so sweet of you." Looking back, I realized that text should have felt wrong somehow. The enthusiasm seemed forced, the exclamation points a little too bright, but I was so caught up in my own excitement that I missed the warning signs. The next morning, Christmas Eve, I loaded my car with food and presents, double-checking that I had everything. The lake house confirmation printouts were in my purse, tucked into a festive envelope I'd decorated with photos of our family over the years. I drove to my parents' house singing along to Christmas carols, mentally rehearsing how I'd present the surprise. Maybe during dessert, when everyone was relaxed and happy, I imagined their faces lighting up, their excitement about 2 weeks together in a beautiful location. Grace's car was already in the driveway when I arrived, along with Derek's truck. Tyler's bike was on the front porch, which meant he'd ridden over from his friend's house as planned. Perfect timing. I knocked and let myself in, arms full of covered dishes and gift bags. "Merry Christmas Eve," I called out cheerfully. The living room was full of warm light and the smell of my mother's famous ham. Grace and Derek were on the couch, Tyler was setting up some new video game, and my parents were in the kitchen finishing dinner preparations. Everything looked exactly like Christmas was supposed to look, but something felt slightly off. Conversations stopped just a beat too long when I entered rooms. People's smiles seemed to require extra effort. There was an undercurrent of energy I couldn't identify, anticipation mixed with something else. At the time, I thought it was excitement about Christmas presents or maybe nerves about Tyler's first semester grades, which were coming out after the holiday. I didn't recognize it as guilt. During dinner, Grace kept checking her phone, which wasn't like her. Tyler seemed distracted, answering questions about school with uncharacteristic brevity. My parents exchanged glances I couldn't interpret. But the food was delicious, everyone complimented my contributions, and the conversation flowed well enough. We talked about Tyler's basketball team, Grace's new job prospects, my latest client success stories. Normal family dinner conversation. What we didn't talk about was the lake house. Nobody asked about vacation plans or mentioned getting away together. The enthusiasm Grace had expressed about plans seemed to have evaporated. Still, I was too excited about my surprise to pay attention to the subtle wrongness in the room. After dinner, we moved to the living room for presents. Everyone opened gifts with appropriate appreciation. Grace loved the vintage camera. Tyler immediately started reading his graphic novel. My parents were genuinely touched by their personal gifts. Then came the moment I'd been anticipating all day. I pulled out the decorated envelope, my heart racing with excitement. "I have one more surprise for everyone," I announced, standing up so they could all see me clearly. The room went completely quiet. Not the good kind of quiet, where people are eagerly waiting for wonderful news. The uncomfortable kind, where everyone suddenly becomes very interested in their hands or their phones or anything except looking at the person speaking. I should have stopped right there. Should have tucked the envelope back in my purse and suggested we clean up instead. But I was so eager to share my gift, so proud of what I'd arranged, so convinced that this would be the moment our family finally acknowledged how much I contributed to our happiness. I opened the envelope with a flourish. Surprise! I've rented us a lake house for 2 weeks starting tomorrow. The silence that followed my announcement was deafening. Not the excited, surprised kind of silence, the kind where people are processing devastating news. Grace and Derek exchanged a look I couldn't decipher. Tyler suddenly became fascinated by his graphic novel. My parents stared at me like I'd just announced I was joining a cult. "A lake house?" My mother's voice came out strained. "For all of us?" "Yes," I beamed, pulling out the printed confirmations and photos. The most beautiful place on Cedar Lake. 6 bedrooms, gourmet kitchen, private dock, hot tub. I thought it would be perfect for us to spend some real quality time together. I spread the pictures across the coffee table like a travel brochure presentation. "Look at this view. And Tyler, there's kayaking and fishing. Grace, you'd love the hiking trails. The sunrise from the master bedroom is supposed to be incredible." Nobody picked up the photos. My father cleared his throat. "Addison, that sounds very generous, but we actually had some other ideas for the holiday break," Grace interrupted quickly. Too quickly. "You know, just relaxing at home, catching up on sleep." The enthusiasm in my voice felt increasingly forced as I continued. "But that's exactly why this is perfect. We'll all be there together, but everyone can relax however they want. There's a huge living room for group activities and private spaces for alone time. The best of both worlds." Derek shifted uncomfortably on the couch. Tyler's eyes remained glued to his book, but he wasn't turning any pages. "How much did this cost?" My father's accountant voice had taken over, the tone he used when reviewing questionable business expenses. "Don't worry about that," I waved dismissively. "This is my Christmas gift to all of us. The deposit's already paid, everything's confirmed. We can leave right after breakfast tomorrow." Another painful silence. My mother fidgeted with her wedding ring, a tell I recognized from childhood. She only did that when she was preparing to deliver news she knew I wouldn't want to hear. "Sweetheart," she began carefully, "that's such a thoughtful gesture, but I'm not sure the timing is perfect," I interrupted, my cheerfulness becoming almost manic. "Tyler doesn't have school, Grace is between jobs, Derek's off this week. Dad, you said you wanted to retire soon and spend more time with family. Mom, you've been talking about needing a real vacation. The timing couldn't be better." Grace was staring at her phone now, typing something rapidly. A text message, probably to Derek, even though he was sitting right next to her. The realization started creeping in slowly, like cold water rising around my ankles. "Unless," I heard my voice getting smaller, "unless you already have plans?" The looks everyone exchanged were confirmation enough, but I couldn't stop myself from hoping I was wrong. "Well," my father said slowly, "nothing concrete exactly. Just some loose ideas about maybe getting together with some cousins," Grace added vaguely. "Cousins?" We didn't have regular contact with any cousins. Our extended family lived across the country, and we barely exchanged Christmas cards. But I was still clinging to the possibility that this was a misunderstanding. "That sounds wonderful. Are they coming here? We could include them in the lake house plans if there's enough room. I could call and see if—" "No!" Grace's voice came out sharper than intended. "I mean, no, that wouldn't work. It's all very informal, last minute. You know how family things can be." Tyler finally looked up from his book, glanced around the room, and seemed to realize he was witnessing something significant. His 13-year-old intuition was apparently better than mine, because he quietly gathered his things and mumbled something about going to watch TV in the other room. Smart kid. He could sense the disaster approaching. My mother stood up and started collecting dessert plates with unnecessary intensity. "Addison, honey, maybe we should talk about this later. After the holiday rush dies down. Later. Always later with my family. Later meant never, and we all knew it. But I wasn't ready to give up. Not yet." "I don't understand," I said, my voice cracking slightly. "I thought you'd be excited. We never get enough time together as a family. This would be perfect for making memories, having real conversations, just being together." Grace set her phone down and looked at me directly for the first time since I'd made my announcement. Her expression was a mixture of pity and exasperation that made my stomach clench. "Addison," she said slowly, like she was talking to a child, "you can't just plan people's lives for them, even family. We're all adults with our own ideas about how to spend our time." The criticism stung, especially coming from someone who'd never planned anything for herself, let alone anyone else. Grace, who called me to handle everything from apartment deposits to job interview outfit choices, was lecturing me about overstepping boundaries. "I wasn't planning your lives," I protested. "I was giving us a gift, a chance to be together somewhere beautiful." "Without asking what we wanted," Derek added quietly. His first contribution to the conversation, and it was to gang up on me. The room felt like it was shrinking. Everyone was looking at me with variations of the same expression, patience running thin, politeness wearing down, the universal family look of, "Addison is being difficult again." Except I wasn't being difficult. I was being generous. I was trying to create something beautiful for people I loved. Wasn't I? My mother returned from the kitchen, having apparently used the dish-clearing time to formulate her response. She sat down next to me on the love seat, her expression gentle but firm. "Sweetheart, we appreciate the thought. We really do. But sometimes the best family time happens naturally, without big productions or expensive gestures." Expensive gestures. That's what my lake house gift had become. Not a thoughtful attempt to bring us closer together, but an expensive gesture, an imposition, an overreach. I folded the lake house photos back into their envelope, my hands shaking slightly. "So you don't want to go?" "It's not that we don't want to," my father said diplomatically. "It's that we already have tentative plans." Tentative plans, with mysterious cousins, that were too informal and last minute to include me, but solid enough to trump a lake house vacation I'd spent weeks arranging. The pieces were starting to fit together in a picture I didn't want to see. Grace picked up her phone again, glanced at the screen, and smiled slightly at whatever message she'd received. A private smile. A secret smile. That's when I asked the question that changed everything. "Grace," I said quietly, "what plans exactly are you talking about?" She froze, phone halfway to her pocket. And in that moment of hesitation, I saw the truth in her eyes. Grace's phone stayed suspended in mid-air for what felt like an eternity. Her face cycled through expressions. Surprise, calculation, and then something that looked almost like relief. "Well," she said slowly, setting the phone down with deliberate care, "since you're asking directly." My parents went completely still. Derek studied his hands like they contained the secrets of the universe. The Christmas tree lights that had seemed so warm and festive 5 minutes ago now felt garish and fake. Grace looked around the room as if polling for permission, then straightened her shoulders in a way that reminded me painfully of our mother when she was about to deliver bad news. "We already had our family gathering," she said simply. "Last week." The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually felt my chest constrict, as if the air had been sucked out of the room. "Last week?" My voice came out as barely a whisper. "Monday through Wednesday," Grace continued, her tone becoming almost conversational now that the secret was out. "We rented the Morrison cabin up by Pine Lake. You know the one Tyler's always talking about from his summer camp?" I knew the cabin. Tyler had described it in detail after every camp session: the huge stone fireplace, the dock with the rope swing, the perfect s'mores fire pit. I'd listened to his stories and thought about how wonderful it would be to experience a place like that with our family. Apparently, they already had. "All of us were there," Grace said, and I caught the slight emphasis on all. Even Aunt Sarah drove down from Portland with the twins. Uncle Mike came over from Sacramento. It was really special, actually. The extended family that we barely kept in touch with had driven hours to attend a gathering I hadn't even known existed. "Why?" I started, then stopped, because I wasn't sure I wanted to hear the answer. But Grace was on a roll now, like someone who'd been holding back water behind a dam for weeks and was finally letting it flow. "Derek took 3 days off work so we could really relax and connect. Tyler learned to water ski. Uncle Mike brought his boat over. Aunt Sarah brought her famous cinnamon rolls. We did a big family hike on Tuesday morning, and Tuesday night we had this amazing bonfire where everyone shared their favorite family memories. Each detail was a small knife twist. Derek taking time off work for a family gathering, Tyler learning a new skill, Aunt Sarah's famous cinnamon rolls that I'd heard about but never tasted, a bonfire with shared memories, all of it happening without me. It was Tyler's idea originally," Grace continued, "and somehow this felt like the worst part. He said he missed having everyone together like when he was little, so we decided to make it happen. Tyler had wanted a family gathering, had specifically requested time with everyone together, and somehow the solution to his wish hadn't included me. My mother was staring at her hands. My father was examining the Christmas tree ornaments with sudden intense interest. Derek had found something fascinating on the ceiling to study. Nobody was looking at me. I don't understand, I said finally. Why wasn't I invited? The question hung in the air like smoke from a fire nobody wanted to acknowledge. Grace glanced at our mother, some kind of silent communication passing between them. Then she sighed, the sound of someone who was tired of pretending. Honestly, Addison, we thought it would be easier. Easier. That word again. The family's favorite euphemism for better without you. Easier how? I pressed, even though part of me already knew I didn't want the answer. Grace looked genuinely frustrated now, as if I was being deliberately obtuse. You know how you get at family things. Always trying to organize everyone, making sure everything's perfect, stressing about details. We wanted something more relaxed. I felt like I was hearing about myself from a stranger's perspective. They saw my efforts to make things special as stress-inducing control, my attempts to create memories as pressure, my desire to contribute as interference. Plus, Grace continued, and her voice took on a slightly sharper edge, it's expensive when you come along. The room went dead silent. Expensive? I repeated slowly. Derek shifted uncomfortably, finally looking up from his hands. Grace, maybe that's not… What? Grace shot back. It's true. Every time we do a family event with Addison, suddenly it becomes this huge production. Fancy restaurants, elaborate activities, expensive gifts for everyone. It's like she can't just be normal about things. Normal. There was that word that my family used to mean poor, because normal for them meant scraping together money for basic outings, splitting every check, carefully budgeting for any extras. But I'd worked hard, specifically, so our family wouldn't have to live that way anymore. So Tyler could have nice experiences without my parents stressing about the cost. So Grace could enjoy herself without worrying about money. So we could all just enjoy being together. Apparently what I saw as generosity, they saw as showing off. I never asked anyone to spend money, I said quietly. I always paid for group activities. Exactly. Grace's voice rose slightly. You always pay, which makes the rest of us feel like freeloaders or something. And then we feel obligated to keep up, to match your energy, to be grateful enough. It's exhausting. My generosity was exhausting. My desire to treat my family was a burden. My success was making them feel bad about themselves. And their solution was to plan family gatherings without me. So you decided it would be better to just exclude me. My voice was eerily calm, which surprised me. I felt like I should be screaming or crying, but instead I was speaking in the steady tone I used during difficult client meetings. My mother finally spoke. It wasn't about exclusion, honey. It was about including the people who could just be together naturally, as if my presence was inherently unnatural, as if I was an artificial element that prevented authentic family bonding. Tyler appeared in the doorway, probably drawn by the sudden quiet after all the conversation. He took one look around the room and started to back away. Stay, buddy, my father said gently. This is your family too. Your family too. Not our family. Tyler's family, which apparently included everyone except me. I looked at my nephew, this kid I'd helped support for years, whose school expenses I'd covered, whose summer camps I'd funded, whose Christmas presents I'd carefully chosen. He looked back at me with something that might have been sympathy or might have been pity. Did you have fun at the cabin, Tyler? I asked, my voice still supernaturally calm. He nodded slowly. Yeah, it was really cool. Uncle Mike taught me to wakeboard, and Aunt Sarah let me help make breakfast every morning. We played card games until like midnight. Uncle Mike, who I'd met maybe 3 times in my adult life. Aunt Sarah, who I knew primarily through Christmas cards and social media updates. They'd been more involved in this family gathering than I was. That sounds wonderful, I said, and meant it. Tyler deserved fun experiences with extended family. He deserved the chance to learn new skills and stay up too late and feel loved by a wide circle of relatives. What hurt was that somehow my presence would have prevented that happiness. Grace must have seen something in my expression because her tone shifted slightly, becoming gentler but somehow more condescending. Look, Addison, it's nothing personal. We love you, you know that. But sometimes families need different kinds of time together. This was about being spontaneous and relaxed. You're not really a spontaneous person. Not spontaneous. Too controlling. Financially intimidating. Socially exhausting. I was starting to understand how my family saw me, and it wasn't pretty. But there was still one thing I didn't understand. The lake house reservation, I said slowly. If you already had your gathering, what was I supposed to do with it? Grace blinked. Oh, I just assumed you'd cancel it? Get your money back? She'd assumed I'd cancel a $5,000 reservation and eat the cancellation fee. Just like that. Because my family's convenience was worth more than my financial loss. And in the back of my mind, a small voice whispered, "You would have done exactly that. You would have canceled everything and taken the loss and told them not to worry about it." That's what Addison did. But suddenly, I wasn't sure I wanted to be that person anymore. I sat there holding the lake house confirmation papers, and for the first time in my adult life, I truly saw myself through my family's eyes. Not as the successful businesswoman who'd worked her way up from nothing. Not as the generous daughter who'd helped keep everyone afloat. Not as the caring sister who always put family first. I was the family burden, the one who complicated simple things, the one who made everyone uncomfortable with money they didn't have, the one who wasn't invited to family gatherings because she made them less natural. "So," I said, my voice still eerily steady, "what happens next Christmas? Do I get warned ahead of time about the secret gathering, or do I just show up to another dinner where everyone already knows I missed the real celebration?" My parents exchanged another one of their loaded looks. Grace actually had the decency to look slightly ashamed, but not enough to take back anything she'd said. "Addison," my mother started, "you're being dramatic." "Am I?" I interrupted, and for the first time that evening, my voice carried some heat. I just learned that my entire family planned and executed a 3-day vacation while letting me believe we hadn't made holiday plans yet. How exactly should I be reacting? Derek cleared his throat. "Maybe we should all take a break, and—" "No." I stood up, surprising myself with the firmness in my voice. "I want to understand this. Tyler, come here." My nephew reluctantly approached, clearly wishing he was anywhere else. "Did you know about the cabin trip while we were planning Christmas dinner tonight?" I asked him gently. He nodded, not meeting my eyes. "Did anyone tell you not to mention it to me?" Another nod. Grace started to protest. "We didn't want to hurt your feelings. By lying to me instead?" I looked around the room at these people who were supposed to love me. That was the solution? Elaborate deception followed by, "What was tonight supposed to be? Your guilt dinner," before I found out the truth. The silence was answer enough. I thought about all the little moments that made sense now. Grace's forced enthusiasm about plans, Tyler's distraction during dinner, my parents' careful avoidance of vacation talk, Derek's uncomfortable fidgeting. They'd all been sitting here knowing they'd already had their Christmas celebration while I excitedly planned to surprise them with mine. "You know what the really sick part is?" I said, still speaking in that calm voice that didn't feel like my own. "I would have been happy for you. If you'd just told me you wanted a quiet family gathering without me, I would have understood. I would have been disappointed, but I would have understood. That wasn't entirely true, but it should have been. But instead you let me plan and pay for a lake house, buy Christmas gifts, prepare food, get excited about family time." I gestured at the spread of presents and dishes I'd brought, all while knowing you'd already had your real Christmas without me. Tyler was still standing next to me, and I could see him processing this adult drama he'd been dragged into. I put my hand on his shoulder. "Tyler, can you do me a favor? Can you go get your phone?" He looked confused but nodded and ran upstairs. "Addison, what are you doing?" Grace asked nervously. "I'm checking something." When Tyler returned with his phone, I smiled at him. "Can I see your pictures from the cabin trip? I bet you got some great shots of the lake." His face lit up despite the tension in the room. 13-year-old boys love showing off their photos, even in awkward circumstances. "Oh yeah, look at this one of me wakeboarding." He swiped to a photo of himself on the lake, grinning widely, with Uncle Mike's boat in the background. "That's amazing, you look like a natural. What else did you take pictures of?" He scrolled through eagerly. "Here's the cabin. See how huge the fireplace is? And this is Aunt Sarah making her cinnamon rolls. Oh, and this is the group picture we took on the last night." He handed me the phone, and there it was. My entire extended family gathered around the cabin's dining table, faces glowing in candlelight. Genuine smiles of people who'd just shared something special together. Grace and Derek laughing about something. My parents looking more relaxed than I'd seen them in years. Uncle Mike with his arm around Aunt Sarah. The twins making bunny ears behind someone's head. Tyler beaming in the center of it all. A perfect family moment. A memory they'd all treasure. And exactly the kind of gathering I'd been trying to create with the lake house. "It's a beautiful picture," I said, handing the phone back to Tyler. "You all look so happy." He nodded enthusiastically. "It was the best 3 days ever. We played games and cooked together and just hung out. No pressure, you know. Just family time. No pressure. Just family time. The kind of relaxed, authentic experience that apparently couldn't happen with me there." I looked at this photo of my family's joy and felt something inside me shift. Not quite anger, not quite sadness. Something colder and more final. Understanding. "Can you do me one more favor, Tyler?" I asked. "Can you check if there are any group texts or family chats on your phone that I should know about?" Grace shot up from the couch. "Addison, that's not—" "It's fine." Tyler said, already scrolling. I mean, there's just the family group chat. But you're not. He stopped, realizing what he'd just revealed. I'm not in the family group chat, I finished for him. He looked around the room desperately, finally understanding that he'd just dropped a bomb. Tyler, honey, go upstairs, my mother said quickly. No, stay, I said firmly. This is educational for all of us. Tyler, how long has the family group chat existed? Like 6 months maybe? Since we started planning stuff for summer? 6 months. They'd had a family communication system for 6 months that I wasn't included in. And what kind of stuff do you talk about in there? Tyler looked at Grace pleadingly, but she was staring at her hands again. Just, family stuff, plans and jokes and pictures, normal family things that didn't include me. I held out my hand. Can I see it? Addison, my father started. I want to see the family group chat that my family has been using for 6 months without telling me. Tyler looked around the room again, but everyone was avoiding eye contact. Finally, he shrugged and handed me his phone. The group was called Hartwell Family. 12 members. My parents, Grace, Derek, Tyler, Uncle Mike, Aunt Sarah, the twins, and 2 other cousins I barely knew. Everyone except me. I scrolled up through months of messages. Plans for Tyler's birthday party. Discussions about my parents' anniversary gift. Photos from various gatherings. Inside jokes and family updates. An entire parallel family life that had been happening without my knowledge. And then I found the messages about Christmas. The thread was from 2 weeks ago. Grace had started it. So excited for the cabin trip. Tyler's going to love Uncle Mike's boat. My mother. Should we tell Addison about the change of plans? Grace. Let's just keep it simple. She always makes things complicated. Derek. Maybe she wouldn't want to come anyway. She's been working a lot lately. Aunt Sarah. Honestly, it might be nice to have a relaxed gathering for once. Uncle Mike. No offense, but last time felt like a business retreat. I'm looking forward to just hanging out. My father. Let's see how it goes. If it works out well, maybe we can make it a tradition of family gatherings without me. I handed the phone back to Tyler, who looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. The room was completely silent, except for the sound of my heart beating in my ears. Well, I said finally, this has been illuminating. I stood in my family's living room, surrounded by Christmas decorations and the remnants of a dinner I'd prepared, holding the truth in my hands like broken glass. My family hadn't just excluded me from a gathering. They'd built an entire communication system without me. They'd been discussing my personality flaws and planning their relief at my absence. They'd turned my financial contributions into evidence of my social inadequacy, and they'd been doing it for months. Addison, my mother said softly, you have to understand. I do understand, I interrupted, and my voice was surprisingly calm. I understand perfectly now. I looked around the room at these people who shared my DNA, my childhood, my history. Grace, who'd never paid for a family dinner but complained that my generosity made others uncomfortable. My parents, who'd accepted years of financial help while secretly resenting the provider. Tyler, who'd enjoyed the benefits of my support while participating in conversations about how burdensome I was. Derek, who wasn't even blood family, felt comfortable enough to suggest I wouldn't want to attend family gatherings. Uncle Mike, who I saw maybe twice a year, thought my presence turned family time into a business retreat. Aunt Sarah, who'd never had a private conversation with me in her adult life, found my company so taxing that my absence would make gatherings more relaxing. You want to know what I understand? I continued, my voice getting steadier with each word. I understand that I've been funding my own exclusion for years. Grace started to protest, but I held up my hand. Every time I paid for Tyler's tutoring, I was paying for him to be more comfortable telling other family members how difficult I am. Every time I covered your rent, Grace, I was subsidizing your ability to complain about my personality to relatives behind my back. Every time I handled Mom's insurance premiums, I was buying her the freedom to discuss how much easier family events would be without me. The truth was crystallizing as I spoke, becoming clearer and more painful with each word. I've been financially supporting a family that doesn't actually want me in it. I've been paying for the privilege of being tolerated. My father cleared his throat. Now that's not— Yes, it is. I turned to face him directly. Dad, when's the last time you called me just to talk? Not because you needed help moving furniture or wanted advice about an investment, but just because you wanted to hear my voice? Silence. Grace, when's the last time you asked about my business, my goals, my personal life? Not because you needed something from me, but because you actually cared about my experiences? More silence. Mom, when's the last time you expressed genuine interest in who I'm dating? What I'm reading? What makes me happy? Independent of what I could do for the family? The silence was becoming painful, but I wasn't done. Tyler, I love you, and none of this is your fault, but I want you to think about something. In that family group chat, when people were discussing how much better family gatherings would be without me, did anyone mention the contributions I've made to this family? Did anyone say, maybe we should include Addison because she's helped us so much over the years? Tyler shook his head slowly, his face flushed with embarrassment. Did anyone say, Addison works hard and deserves to relax with us? Or Addison's generosity has made a lot of good things possible for this family? Another head shake. So what exactly is my role here? I asked the room. Because it's clearly not daughter, sister, or aunt in any meaningful way. What am I to you people? Grace finally found her voice. Your family, Addison. You know that. No, I said quietly. I'm a service provider. I'm the family's financial solution to problems. I'm the person you call when you need something handled, and the person you exclude when you want to enjoy yourselves. I looked at each of them in turn. I'm not family. I'm a resource. My mother's eyes filled with tears. That's not true, sweetheart. We love you. You love what I can do for you, I corrected. There's a difference. I walked over to where my purse sat on the entry table and pulled out my checkbook. You know what? You're right about one thing. Family gatherings are expensive when I'm involved. I wrote out a check and tore it off cleanly. Tyler, this is for your spring semester tutoring. Consider it my withdrawal gift from the family financial support system. I wrote another check. Grace, this should cover your car payment and insurance for the next 3 months. After that, you and Derek can figure it out. A third check. Mom and Dad, this covers the health insurance premiums through June. After that, you'll need to find another plan or another sponsor. I closed the checkbook with a snap. Effective immediately, I'm retiring from my position as the Hartwell family's financial services department. You can have your relaxed, natural, pressure-free gatherings without worrying about my expensive generosity or social awkwardness. Grace was staring at the checks like they might explode. Addison, you're being ridiculous. You're upset, but I'm not upset, I said truthfully. I'm done. I picked up my coat from the chair where I'd laid it so optimistically a few hours ago. The lake house is still reserved through January 2nd if anyone wants to use it. The confirmation information is in that envelope on the coffee table. Consider it my last contribution to family happiness. I paused at the door and looked back at them one more time. For what it's worth, Tyler's right. You all do look really happy in that cabin picture. Apparently, I was the only thing standing between this family and authentic joy. My hand was on the doorknob when my mother called out desperately. Addison, please! Don't leave like this. It's Christmas Eve. I turned back to her. This woman who'd raised me and fed me and taught me to ride a bicycle and helped me with homework, who had somehow become a stranger who discussed my personality flaws with extended family members in group chats I wasn't allowed to join. You're right, Mom. It is Christmas Eve. And for the first time in my adult life, I'm going to spend it exactly how I want to, without worrying about what anyone else needs from me. I opened the door, and the cold December air hit my face like a promise. Merry Christmas, I said. Enjoy your traditions. And I walked out into the night, leaving behind the family that had never really been mine at all. The first call came at 6:47 a.m. on Christmas morning. I was in my downtown condo making coffee in blessed silence when Grace's name lit up my phone screen. I let it go to voicemail, then she called again and again. By 7:15, she'd called 6 times. I finally answered on the 7th call, more out of curiosity than any desire for reconciliation. What, Grace? Addison, thank God. We need to talk. Last night got way out of hand, and I think there were some misunderstandings. There weren't any misunderstandings. I poured my coffee, noting how peaceful my kitchen felt without the chaos of family obligations. Everything was remarkably clear. Look, we were all stressed about the holidays, and maybe some things came out wrong, but we're family. We can work through this. Family. That word again. The magic word that was supposed to erase months of deception and make me forget that I'd discovered my own relatives had a group chat dedicated to discussing how much better their lives were without me. Grace, did you call to apologize? A pause. Well, yes, sort of. I mean, we all feel bad about how you found out about the cabin, but how I found out. I set my mug down harder than necessary. Not that it happened. How I found out. That's not what I meant. That's exactly what you meant. You're sorry I discovered your secret family life. Not sorry that you created one. Through the phone, I could hear familiar background noise. My parents' house, the sound of Tyler opening Christmas presents, Derek's voice saying something about coffee. They were all there, together, on Christmas morning, continuing their cozy family tradition while trying to manage the inconvenience of my feelings. Everyone's here, Grace said, confirming my suspicions. We want to talk to you. Can you come over? We can figure this out. Figure this out. Like my hurt was a problem to be solved, rather than a natural response to betrayal. I'm busy, I said simply. Busy with what? It's Christmas morning, and there it was. The assumption that I had nowhere else to go, nothing else to do, no life outside of their family drama. The assumption that had probably been correct for years, but no longer was. I'm busy living my life, Grace. Something I should have started doing a long time ago. I hung up. The call started immediately. Grace again, then my mother, then my father. I turned my phone to silent and watched their names appear and disappear on the screen like a desperate light show. By noon, they'd called 17 times. By 2 p.m., the texts started. Mom, sweetheart, please call us back. We love you and want to make this right. Dad, Addison, this family disagreement has gone too far. We need to sit down and discuss this rationally. Grace, I know you're hurt, but you're being really unfair. We never meant for you to feel left out. Tyler, Aunt Addison, everyone's really sad and I don't understand what happened. Can you please come over? That last one almost broke my resolve. Almost. But then I thought about 13-year-old Tyler casually mentioning the family group chat I wasn't included in, and my sympathy hardened back into resolve. Around 4 p.m., Derek texted, "Hey, maybe you need some space right now and that's fine. But Grace is really upset and your parents are worried. When you're ready to talk, we're here." Derek's message was different, more thoughtful. It almost felt sincere until I remembered that this was the same man who'd suggested I might not want to attend family gatherings anyway. What do you think will happen next? Drop your predictions in the comments below and hit that subscribe button if you've ever had to set boundaries with family members who didn't want to respect them. By evening, the calls had stopped. In their place came a single text from my mother. "The lake house reservation you mentioned, can you send us the details? We thought we might use it after all." I stared at that message for a long time. They wanted the lake house. Of course they did. Now that they'd run out of immediate money for post-Christmas activities, suddenly my expensive gesture was looking pretty appealing. I didn't respond. Instead, I called the property management company and canceled the reservation entirely. Yes, I lost the deposit. No, I didn't care. Let them plan their own vacations with their own money. The next morning brought a voicemail from my father that was different in tone from the others. Less conciliatory, more businesslike. "Addison, we need to discuss the practical implications of your decision yesterday. There are ongoing financial arrangements that need to be addressed professionally, regardless of personal feelings. Call me back." Practical implications. Professional arrangements. Dad was worried about the money. I almost laughed. For 24 hours, they'd tried love and guilt and family loyalty. Now that those hadn't worked, they were moving to financial pressure. The truth was, they needed me. Not as a daughter or sister, but as their personal financial services department. And now their ATM had suddenly announced it was going out of business. I didn't call him back either. Instead, I did something I hadn't done in years. I made plans that had nothing to do with family obligations. I called my college roommate Sarah, who I'd lost touch with because family commitments always took priority over friendships. "Addison, oh my God, hi. I was just thinking about you the other day. How are you?" We talked for an hour. About her marriage, her new job, her kids, her recent trip to Ireland. She asked about my business, my dating life, my goals for the new year. It was the first conversation I'd had in months, where nobody needed anything from me. "You should come visit," Sarah said. "We'd love to have you. No agenda, no family drama, just hanging out like old times." "I'd like that," I said, and realized I meant it completely. After we hung up, I sat in my living room looking at the city lights and felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Peace. For the first time in my adult life, I had no family obligations, no financial responsibilities to anyone but myself, no guilt about not doing enough for people who didn't appreciate what I was already doing. It felt like freedom. The consequences started small. A week after New Year's, Tyler's tutoring center called to confirm his spring semester schedule and payment arrangement. When they couldn't reach my parents, they called the emergency contact on file. Me. "Ms. Hartwell, we wanted to confirm Tyler's continued enrollment and discuss the upcoming payment. Will you be handling the account as usual?" For a moment, muscle memory almost made me say yes. Almost made me pull out my credit card and handle it like I had for the past 3 years. "No," I said instead. "You'll need to contact his parents directly." "Oh, we tried, but they mentioned they're waiting for a call back about payment options. Is there a billing issue we should know about?" There was no billing issue. There was just no more free money. "You'll have to work that out with them," I said politely, and gave them my mother's work number. Tyler didn't get dropped from tutoring that week, but his sessions got reduced from 3 times a week to once. My parents had found some money somewhere, probably by borrowing against their credit cards. The next consequence came 2 weeks later when Grace called, and this time her tone was different. Less angry, more desperate. Addison, I hate to ask this, but Derek's been sick and missed work, and our car payment is due tomorrow. Could you maybe help us out just this once? I'll pay you back as soon as Derek's back on his feet. Just this once. The phrase people use when they're pretending this isn't a pattern. Grace, I'm not your emergency fund anymore. I know you're mad about Christmas, but this isn't about that. This is about real-world consequences. If we miss this payment, they'll repo the car, and then Derek can't get to work when he's better. Real-world consequences. As if the consequences of their deception weren't also real-world. Then you should probably figure out a solution, I said calmly. Maybe ask Mom and Dad for help. Or Derek's family. Or that extended family support system you all enjoyed so much at the cabin. They don't have money either. And Derek's parents live across the country. You know we don't have other options. You have the same options everyone else has when they can't afford their car payment. You can negotiate with the lender, find a part-time job, sell something valuable, or downsize to a cheaper car. Grace was quiet for a moment. When did you become so cold? Cold. Interesting choice of words from someone who'd spent months participating in family discussions about how burdensome my presence was. I became realistic, Grace. I realized that bailing you out repeatedly wasn't helping you learn to manage your own life. This isn't about learning lessons. This is about family helping family when there's a crisis. Where was that family help when I needed emotional support last month? When I was being excluded and lied to and discussed behind my back like a problem to be managed? Another pause. That's different. No, it's not. It's exactly the same thing. You need something from me, so suddenly I'm family again. But when you didn't need anything, I wasn't even worth including in group conversations. I hung up. Grace managed to keep her car that month, though I later learned they borrowed money from Derek's brother and put the payment on a credit card. They were solving their problems just like adults do. March brought the health insurance crisis. My mother called on a Tuesday evening, and her voice had the careful modulation of someone trying not to sound panicked. Addison, honey, we need to discuss the health insurance situation. What about it? Well, the premium increased for this year, and with the changes in our financial arrangement, we're having trouble covering it. Changes in our financial arrangement. As if I'd been the one to change things by discovering their secret family life. Have you looked into other options? I asked. We tried. But everything else is much more expensive or has terrible coverage. Your company plan was such a good deal for us. My company plan, the one I'd been paying for entirely while they contributed nothing and complained about me behind my back. I'm sure you'll find something that works, I said. Addison, please. Your father's been having some heart issues, and we really need good coverage right now. Can't we work something out? Heart issues. The trump card. The thing designed to make me feel guilty for prioritizing my own financial well-being over my father's health. Except I knew my father. I knew his heart issues were stress-related and minor, the kind of thing his doctor had told him to manage with exercise and diet changes. Not a medical emergency, just a convenient reason to guilt me back into funding their lives. Dad should definitely get good health coverage, I agreed. There are lots of options available through the state marketplace, or Mom could look for a full-time job with benefits. I can't work full-time at my age, my mother protested, and the marketplace plans are so expensive. Then you have some difficult decisions to make, I said gently, just like everyone else does when their circumstances change. She was quiet for a long moment. I don't understand what happened to you, she said finally. You used to care about this family. I used to think this family cared about me too, I replied. Turns out we were both wrong. The insurance lapsed at the end of March. By April, my parents had found a marketplace plan that cost twice as much with a higher deductible, and my mother had picked up extra hours at work to help cover it. They were handling their responsibilities, managing their own lives, making adult decisions about their priorities and resources. It was remarkable what they could accomplish when they had to. Tyler's grades started slipping without the intensive tutoring, but not drastically. Turns out he was actually pretty smart on his own. He'd just been over-supported for so long that nobody knew what he was naturally capable of. Grace and Derek moved to a smaller apartment to reduce expenses and started cooking at home more often instead of ordering takeout. Derek picked up freelance work when he wasn't at his regular job. They were all learning to live within their means instead of living within mine. And me? I was learning something too. I was learning what it felt like to have money that was actually mine, to make decisions about my resources based on my own goals instead of someone else's crisis, to save for things I wanted instead of constantly covering other people's needs. For the first time in my adult life, I was building wealth instead of just earning it to give it away. It felt strange, unfamiliar, but not wrong. By May, my family had apparently held a meeting about the Addison situation. I know this because Tyler let it slip during one of our occasional text conversations. Despite everything, I'd maintained some contact with my nephew. He was 13 and caught in the middle of adult drama he didn't create. And I wasn't about to punish him for his parents' choices. Tyler, everyone's really stressed about money stuff now. Mom says we need to have a family meeting about figuring things out. Me. That sounds like a good plan. Families should definitely figure out their own finances. Tyler. But they want to talk to you too. Mom says you're being stubborn, but everyone misses you. Stubborn. There was that word again. The family's favorite label for me whenever I didn't immediately do what they wanted. Tyler. Could you maybe just come to dinner this weekend? Please? I stared at that message for a long time. Part of me, the old Addison part, wanted to say yes, wanted to believe that maybe they'd learned something, grown from this experience, recognized how they'd treated me, but a bigger part of me knew better. This wasn't an invitation for reconciliation. It was a business meeting disguised as family time. They'd tried emotional manipulation, guilt, and individual pressure. Now they were trying collective intervention. Me. Tyler, I love you, and none of this is about you, but I'm not ready for family dinners yet. Tyler, when will you be ready? It was such an innocent question, and it made my heart hurt because I didn't have a good answer for him. When would I be ready to sit at a table with people who'd lied to me for months? When would I be ready to pretend that their financial needs mattered more than their emotional betrayal? When would I be ready to go back to being the family's solution instead of being treated like family? Me. I don't know yet, buddy. But we can still text and hang out sometimes. Just you and me. 3 days later, Grace showed up at my office. I was in a client meeting when my assistant buzzed me. Your sister is here. She says it's urgent. My first thought was that someone had been hurt or hospitalized. My second thought was that this was probably exactly what Grace wanted me to think. I excused myself from the meeting and found Grace in my lobby, looking around at the modern furniture and expensive artwork with an expression I couldn't quite read. Nice place, she said when she saw me. Very professional. Grace, what's wrong? Is someone hurt? No one's hurt, she said quickly. We need to talk. Can we go somewhere private? I led her to my office, wondering if this counted as a new low in our relationship. Using fake emergencies to force conversations was definitely uncharted territory. What's so urgent it couldn't wait for a phone call? I asked once we were seated. Grace looked around my office again, the view of the city, the awards on the walls, the photos of successful client projects. You've done really well for yourself, she said. Thank you. Was that what you came to tell me? No. Addison, this has gone on long enough. We're family, and families fight, but they also forgive each other. Forgive each other. As if this was a mutual conflict where both sides had done something wrong. What exactly are you asking me to forgive you for, Grace? She shifted uncomfortably. For the Christmas thing. For not including you in the cabin trip. For handling it badly. Handling it badly. Not for lying. Not for excluding me. Not for the months of secret conversations about how problematic my presence was. Just for handling it badly. And what am I supposed to be forgiving you for? I asked. For the money thing. For cutting everyone off without warning. For being so dramatic about what was essentially a miscommunication. A miscommunication. 6 months of secret group chats and family gatherings was a miscommunication. Grace, are you here because you miss me or because you need money? That's not fair. It's a yes or no question. She looked out the window for a moment, and I could see her calculating her response. Both, she said finally. We do miss you. Tyler asks about you constantly. Mom and Dad are worried. But yes, things have been financially challenging since you decided to step back. Decided to step back. Such a polite way to describe discovering I'd been excluded from my own family. What do you need? I asked directly. Mom and Dad are struggling with the health insurance costs. Tyler's grades are dropping without the tutoring. Derek and I are barely making ends meet. We thought maybe we could work out some kind of arrangement. What kind of arrangement? Grace leaned forward, and I could see the relief in her face that we were finally talking terms. Well, maybe you could help with some of the major expenses, but we'd include you in planning from now on. Make sure you're involved in family decisions. Add you to the group chat. Add me to the group chat. The magnanimous gesture of including me in conversations about my own family. So I'd go back to paying for things, and in exchange, you'd treat me like an actual family member. That's not how I'd put it. How would you put it? Grace struggled for a moment. We'd be more transparent about family planning, more considerate of your feelings, more considerate of my feelings. Not actually changing their feelings about me, just being more careful about letting me know what those feelings were. Grace, do you understand why I'm upset? Because we didn't handle the Christmas situation well? Because you don't actually like me. She blinked, startled. What? Of course we like you. Your family. No. You like what I can do for you. There's a difference. When's the last time any of you chose to spend time with me when you didn't need something? Silence. When's the last time you called just to see how I was doing? When's the last time you asked about my life, my interests, my goals, without it being connected to some favor you needed? More silence. You don't actually enjoy my company, Grace. None of you do. You find me socially awkward and financially intimidating and generally burdensome. The only reason you want me back in the family is because you can't afford to maintain your lifestyle without me. That's not true, she protested, but her voice lacked conviction. Prove it. What? Prove it. Show me that this is about missing me and not about missing my money. Rebuild the relationships first without any financial component. Spend time with me because you enjoy my company, not because you need my resources. Grace stared at me. But what about all the practical issues? Mom and Dad really are struggling with insurance costs. And there it was. Even when challenged to prove this wasn't about money, she immediately returned to money. The practical issues are for you to solve as adults, I said gently, just like everyone else does. Grace's expression shifted from confusion to something sharper. You know, Tyler was right. You have changed. You used to care about other people. I used to care about people who cared about me back, I corrected. Now I care about people who value me for who I am, not what I can provide. She stood up, smoothing her skirt with sharp, angry movements. Fine. If that's how you want it, fine. But don't expect us to keep trying forever. I don't expect anything from you anymore, Grace. That's the point. After she left, I sat in my office looking out at the city and realized something important. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel like I should chase after her and apologize and fix everything. I didn't feel responsible for her disappointment or her family's financial struggles. I felt clear, solid, sure of myself. It was a completely new sensation, and I liked it. Summer brought something I hadn't experienced in years, the luxury of making plans for myself. Without family emergencies to manage or relatives to subsidize, I suddenly had both time and money that belonged entirely to me. The feeling was so unfamiliar, I almost didn't know what to do with it. Almost. I started with the friendship I'd neglected for years. Sarah, my college roommate, invited me to visit her family in Colorado, and for the first time in a decade, I said yes to a vacation that had nothing to do with family obligations. I can't believe you're actually coming, Sarah said when I called to confirm my flights. I was starting to think you were a myth. How many times have we planned trips that got canceled because of some family crisis? At least 6 times over the past 5 years. I realized with embarrassment. 6 times I'd prioritized other people's needs over my own friendships. No family crises this time, I told her. Just me and whatever you guys want to do. Just you is perfect. Mike can't wait to meet the famous Addison I've been talking about for 15 years. Famous Addison. It was weird to think of myself as a person worth meeting rather than just a resource worth utilizing. Colorado was a revelation. Sarah's husband, Mike, was a park ranger, funny and kind and genuinely interested in hearing about my business. Their 2 kids, ages 8 and 10, were curious and energetic without being demanding. We hiked, cooked together, played board games, talked about everything and nothing. Nobody needed me to pay for anything. Nobody had hidden agendas or financial crises. Nobody made me feel like I was too much or not enough. It was just fun, relaxed, natural. You know, Sarah said on my last night there, as we sat on her back porch watching the sunset over the mountains. You seem different than you used to. Different how? Calmer, maybe? More yourself. In college, you were always so stressed about your family, always rushing off to handle some emergency at home. I used to worry that you never got to just be young and selfish like the rest of us. Young and selfish. Rights I'd never claimed, because family responsibilities had always come first. I'm learning how to be appropriately selfish, I told her. Good. It's about time. When I got back to Seattle, I felt energized in a way I hadn't experienced since starting my business. I'd forgotten what it was like to return from a trip feeling refreshed instead of guilty about the time and money I'd spent on myself. I threw myself into work with new enthusiasm, taking on challenging projects I'd previously avoided because they required too much time and energy. Without constantly worrying about my family's financial needs, I could focus entirely on growing my business. By August, I'd hired 2 new employees and was considering opening a branch office in Portland. I also started dating again. Really dating, not just occasionally going out with someone when family obligations permitted. I met Jonathan at a conference in September. He was an architect, smart and funny, with his own successful practice and no interest in being financially supported by anyone. Our first 3 dates were like a masterclass in what healthy adult relationships could look like. We split checks without drama, made plans that we actually kept, talked about our goals and interests without either of us trying to solve the other's problems. When Jonathan eventually met some of my friends, Nobody whispered about what he might want from me or whether I could afford to maintain the relationship. It was completely novel, this idea of being valued for my personality rather than my bank account. October brought an unexpected test of my resolve. Tyler called instead of texting, which usually meant something serious was happening. "Aunt Addison, are you busy?" "Never too busy for you, buddy. What's up?" "Well, I wanted to ask you something, but Mom said I shouldn't, but I really need help with something." Warning bells immediately started ringing. Tyler had never asked me for anything directly, had never gone behind his mother's back to contact me. This felt different from our usual casual conversations. "What kind of help?" "It's kind of a long story. You know how I've been struggling with algebra this year? Well, there's this math competition at school, and if I do well in it, I could get into advanced placement classes next year, which would look really good for college applications." Tyler was only 14, but Grace had always been obsessive about his academic trajectory. Good for her, actually. It was nice to see her taking responsibility for his future. "That sounds great, Tyler. What's the problem?" "Well, there's this tutoring program specifically for the competition, but it's really expensive. Mom and Dad looked into it but said they can't afford it right now, and I really want to try, but I don't think I can do it on my own." And there it was. The request I'd been expecting for months, delivered through the one family member I couldn't easily say no to. "Tyler, that sounds frustrating. Have your parents looked into less expensive options?" "Yeah, but nothing that's specifically for this competition. Aunt Addison, I know things have been weird with the family lately, and I don't really understand what happened, but could you maybe help with this? Just this once? Just this once." The exact phrase Grace had used about her car payment. "Tyler, how much does this tutoring program cost?" $1,500 for 8 weeks. $1,500. Less than I spent on my vacation to Colorado. Not a huge amount of money, objectively. But this wasn't about the money. "Tyler, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with me. Did your mom suggest you call me about this?" A long pause. "Not exactly. She said I shouldn't bother you because you're mad at the family right now. But I thought maybe if I asked you myself." He hadn't answered my question, which was answer enough. "Buddy, I'm going to tell you something important, and I want you to listen carefully. You are smart enough to succeed in that competition with or without expensive tutoring. The regular tutoring you're getting now is probably enough preparation if you supplement it with practice tests and study groups. But the special program might help, but it's not magic. The students who win these competitions succeed because they work hard and believe in themselves, not because their families can afford premium preparation." Tyler was quiet for a moment. "So you won't help?" The disappointment in his voice almost broke my heart. Almost. "Tyler, I love you, and I believe in your abilities completely, but I'm not going to pay for something your parents should be providing. If they think this tutoring is important enough, they'll find a way to make it happen. They already said they can't afford it. Then they'll have to decide if it's important enough to sacrifice something else for. Maybe fewer dinners out, or a smaller vacation budget, or picking up extra work. That's what adults do when they want something they can't immediately afford. But what if I don't do well in the competition without the special help? Then you'll learn something valuable about handling disappointment and working with the resources you have. And if you do well despite not having every advantage, you'll learn something even more valuable about your own capabilities." After we hung up, I sat in my living room feeling proud and sad in equal measure. Proud because I'd held my boundary even when it was emotionally difficult. Sad because Tyler was being used as a messenger for his family's financial needs, whether he realized it or not. But mostly, I felt clear about my decision. Tyler's education was his parents' responsibility, not mine. His opportunities were theirs to provide or sacrifice for, not mine to fund from the sidelines. If Grace and Derek wanted their son to have premium tutoring, they could make the same difficult choices that millions of parents make every day. 3 weeks later, Tyler texted me, "Got into the competition prep program anyway. Dad picked up extra shifts, and Mom sold some jewelry. They said it was important enough to make sacrifices for." I smiled reading that message. Tyler was learning that his parents valued his education enough to prioritize it over their own comfort. Grace and Derek were learning that they could actually provide for their son's opportunities when they had to. And I was learning that caring about someone didn't have to mean solving all their problems for them. It felt like progress all around. November arrived with the subtle dread that comes with approaching holidays. Thanksgiving was in 3 weeks, Christmas in 7. The season that used to mean family togetherness and shared traditions now loomed like an emotional obstacle course I'd have to navigate. My phone started ringing more frequently again. Not daily like in those first weeks after Christmas, but with increasing regularity as the holiday season approached. The calls weren't about reconciliation anymore. They were about logistics. My mother called on a Tuesday evening, her voice carefully casual. Addison, honey, I wanted to check in about Thanksgiving plans. Will you be joining us this year? It was phrased like a question, but I could hear the assumption underneath it. Of course I'd be joining them. Where else would I go? I haven't decided yet, I said truthfully. Well, we're planning to have everyone at the house as usual. Tyler's been asking about you, and your father and I would really like to have the family together. The family. The same family that had spent last Christmas planning gatherings without me while I prepared dinner for them. What does everyone mean this time? I asked. A pause. Just family. You know, the usual group. The same usual group that went to the cabin last Christmas? Another pause. Longer this time. Addison, that was almost a year ago. Don't you think it's time to move past it? Move past it. The universal family phrase for stop being upset about the thing we don't want to apologize for. I'm not holding grudges, Mom. I'm just being realistic about family dynamics. What does that mean? It meant that I'd spent 11 months learning to value myself the way other people valued me, and I wasn't ready to go back to being taken for granted. It means I'm considering all my options for the holidays. The truth was, I had several options now. Jonathan had invited me to join his family in San Francisco. Sarah had suggested I come back to Colorado for a Friendsgiving celebration. My business partner Marcus was hosting a orphan Thanksgiving for employees who weren't traveling home. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't automatically assuming my family's plans were the only option. Addison, please don't make this difficult. It's Thanksgiving. It's about family being grateful for each other. Family being grateful for each other. Rich. Coming from people who'd spent months in group chats discussing how grateful they were when I wasn't around. I'll let you know, I said. Grace called the next day. Mom said you might not come to Thanksgiving. That's ridiculous, right? Of course you're coming to Thanksgiving. Actually, I'm not sure I am. What do you mean you're not sure? It's Thanksgiving. We're family. Family. That magic word again? Word. Deployed like it erased everything that had happened between us. Grace, do you remember what you said about me last Christmas? In the family group chat? Silence. You said I make family events feel like business retreats. That it's more relaxing when I'm not there. That I always complicate simple things. I didn't mean... Yes, you did. And you were probably right. So maybe everyone would be more comfortable if I spent Thanksgiving somewhere I don't make people feel tense and unnatural. But Tyler wants you there. Tyler. Always Tyler. The emotional leverage they thought would work on me. Tyler wants a lot of things. He wanted intensive tutoring too, and you figured out how to handle that situation without my help. That's different. How? Grace couldn't answer that question, because there wasn't a good answer. Either I was family who belonged at family gatherings, or I was a financial resource they called when they needed funding. I couldn't be both. The calls continued throughout the week. My father tried the guilt approach. Your mother's been very upset since your conversation. Tyler tried the innocence approach. But we always have Thanksgiving together. Even Derek sent a text. Hey, I know things have been complicated, but maybe Thanksgiving could be a fresh start? Fresh start. As if the solution to months of deception and exclusion was to just pretend it hadn't happened. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, I made my decision. I called Jonathan. Is that invitation to San Francisco still open? Absolutely. My family's going to love you. Fair warning, though. My mom cooks enough food to feed a small army. And my dad will definitely challenge you to Scrabble. That sounds perfect. I called my mother next. Mom, I wanted to let you know that I won't be joining you for Thanksgiving this year. I have other plans. The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Other plans? Her voice was small, confused. What other plans? I'm going to San Francisco with Jonathan. Jonathan? I realized I'd never told my family about Jonathan. In the past, I would have brought him to a family dinner by now, introduced him to everyone, included him in our group activities. But I'd learned something important over the past 11 months. Not everyone deserved access to the good things in my life. My boyfriend, I said simply. Your boyfriend? Since when do you have a boyfriend? Since I stopped organizing my life around family crises and had time to actually date like a normal adult. Since September. We've been together a couple of months. And you didn't tell us about him. Why would I? The question clearly startled her. Because we're your family, we should know about important people in your life. Mom, you spent 6 months in a family group chat I wasn't included in. You planned family gatherings without telling me. You celebrated holidays while lying about why I wasn't invited. Why exactly should I share details about my personal life with you? Another long silence. That's different, she said finally. No, it's not. It's exactly the same thing. You decided I didn't need to know about important things happening in your lives. I'm making the same decision about my life. But we want to know about your boyfriend. We want to meet him. Maybe someday. I said. When I'm confident he won't be discussed behind my back or excluded from conversations about his own relationship. I hung up feeling lighter than I had in weeks. The day before Thanksgiving, Tyler texted me, "Everyone's really sad you're not coming tomorrow. Are you sure you can't change your mind?" I stared at that message for a long time. Tyler was 14, old enough to understand adult relationships, but young enough to still believe that family problems could be solved with good intentions and wishful thinking. Me. "I'm sure, buddy, but I hope you have a wonderful day with everyone." Tyler. "It won't be the same without you." Me. "Different doesn't always mean worse. Sometimes it just means different." Tyler. "I guess. Will you call me tomorrow?" Me. "Of course." That night, I packed for San Francisco feeling excited rather than guilty about my holiday plans. For the first time in my adult life, I was going to spend Thanksgiving with people who actually wanted me there, not people who tolerated my presence in exchange for my financial contributions. It felt like the best gift I'd ever given myself. Christmas came quietly this year. I was in my downtown condo on Christmas morning, drinking coffee and watching snow fall outside my windows, when I realized something profound. I felt peaceful, not lonely, despite being physically alone for the moment. Not guilty, despite not spending the holidays with my family. Not anxious, despite breaking decades of tradition. Just peaceful. Jonathan was coming over for brunch before we headed to his friend's house for their annual Christmas potluck. Sarah had called yesterday to share stories about her kids' excitement over their presents. Marcus had sent photos from his family gathering in Phoenix, where he was introducing his new fiancée to his relatives. I was surrounded by relationships that felt genuine, reciprocal, chosen rather than obligated. My phone buzzed with the traditional Christmas morning text from Tyler. "Merry Christmas, Aunt Addison. Hope you're having a good day." I smiled and texted back, "Merry Christmas, buddy. How are your presents?" Tyler, "Really good. Dad got me a new graphics tablet for digital art. Mom gave me some art books. They said they're proud of how well I did in the math competition." Tyler had placed second in his school's competition, qualifying for regionals. He'd accomplished it with the tutoring his parents had sacrificed to provide, plus his own hard work and natural talent. Me. "That's amazing. I'm so proud of you too. You earned that success." Tyler. "Thanks. Hey, everyone misses you here. Everyone misses you." The annual Christmas guilt message, delivered through the most innocent family member. But this year, it bounced off me like rain on a good umbrella. Me. "I miss you too. Maybe we can hang out in the new year, just you and me." Tyler. "Really? That would be cool." Me. "Definitely. We'll do something fun that's just about spending time together." After Jonathan arrived and we'd exchanged presents, books for both of us, a cashmere scarf for me, a vintage camera for him, I found myself telling him about my family situation for the first time in detail. "So you just stopped funding their lifestyle?" he asked, not judgmentally, just curiously. "I stopped being their personal ATM. Yes. Turns out there's a difference between being family and being a financial resource. How do you feel about it now? Any regrets?" I considered that question seriously. Did I have regrets? "I regret that it took me so long to figure out what was happening," I said finally. "I regret that I let myself be treated that way for years. I regret that my nephew got caught in the middle of adult drama. But do you regret setting boundaries?" No, not at all. And I meant it completely. Later that day, at the Christmas potluck, I met Jonathan's friend circle properly for the first time. Teachers, artists, small business owners, a nurse, a software developer, a chef, people with interesting careers and hobbies and opinions, people who'd built lives based on their own values rather than their family's expectations. "Addison owns a business consulting firm," Jonathan told them when introducing me. "She helps companies streamline their operations and increase efficiency. Not Addison is great at solving other people's problems, or Addison always takes care of everyone. Just a straightforward description of my professional accomplishments." "That's fascinating," said Maria the chef. "What's the most challenging part of your work?" We talked about business strategy and change management and client relationships. Nobody asked if I could help them with their finances or solve their career problems. They were just interested in hearing about my experiences and sharing their own. When dinner was served, everyone contributed something and everyone cleaned up afterward. No one person was expected to handle all the logistics or cover all the costs. It was such a simple concept: shared responsibility, mutual respect, genuine interest in each other's lives. But it felt revolutionary after years of one-sided family dynamics. As we walked back to my condo that evening, Jonathan asked, "Do you think you'll eventually reconcile with your family?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "Maybe someday, if they can learn to value me for who I am rather than what I can provide. But I'm not waiting for that to happen before I live my life." Good for you. Family relationships should enhance your life, not drain it. That night, alone in my apartment, I thought about Christmas a year ago. The shock of discovering I'd been excluded from family gatherings. The hurt of realizing I'd been funding my own marginalization. The anger of uncovering months of secret conversations about how burdensome my presence was. All of those feelings felt distant now, like memories of a storm that had passed. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt. I wasn't even particularly interested in whether my family had learned anything from our estrangement. I was just living my life, building relationships that felt mutual and authentic, investing my resources in experiences and people that brought me joy rather than obligation. My phone buzzed one last time that night. A text from my mother. Thinking of you today. Love, Mom. Short and simple. No guilt, no requests, no drama. I texted back, thank you. I hope you had a good day too. And then I turned off my phone and went to bed, surrounded by the quiet satisfaction of a life being lived on my own terms. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't the missing piece at someone else's table. I wasn't the financial solution to other people's problems. I wasn't the family member whose presence had to be managed or whose absence had to be explained. I was just Addison, a successful businesswoman, a good friend, a caring partner, a person worthy of genuine love and respect. It had taken me 29 years to figure out the difference between being needed and being valued. But now that I knew, I was never going back. Outside my window, snow continued to fall on the city, blanketing everything in peaceful white silence. Tomorrow would bring new opportunities, new relationships, new possibilities. Tonight, I was exactly where I belonged,